Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show. I've got a great show set up for you today. I think there's a seminal moment in a new bull market for gold that's going to have a big impact on the gold stocks, the other metals stocks, and I'm going to get right into it because I got a bunch of stocks to talk about today. Before I get into that, I want to talk about some trends that I'm seeing. Back in the third quarter of 2022, I was talking a lot about how oversold I was seeing gold and all the various reasons that were lining up for gold to perform much better. Had a significant breakout in November, and then I started talking about how it was trading well above the 50-day moving average and had broken through the 200-day moving average in December. In January, I was talking about the golden cross that happened and the powerful January effect that was indicating that we should have a very strong year in 2023. February, we got the some employment numbers that gave the currency traders some confidence that the Federal Reserve would keep raising interest rates and supporting a stronger dollar. That ended in early March when we had the banking crisis, and now we're into another correction. But I believe that these are corrections inside of a bull market that started in November of 2022. What I think we're in right now is the crowd or the big audience out there that follows gold are in the I don't believe it's a real bull market camp. And to them, I just say, well, look at all the indicators that you have. You've got the Federal Reserve over tightening, and after 14 years of near zero interest rates, and this was set up a lot of inflation, dramatic inflation in 2022 and into 2023. And the Federal Reserve, by relentlessly raising interest rates from near zero to over 5% now, is breaking things. They're breaking they've broken the housing market, the car market, the consumer is on his knees with needing to use their credit cards to make ends meet and paying 19-20% to do that. And lately, as of in March, it started breaking the banking system, and I don't think that that's very far from, I think it's far from over. These things, the system that was set up, the economic system that was set up for 14 years after the 2008 economic crash, with the near zero interest rates, have really created a situation that will be hard to fix. And a lot of those institutions, the banks and other institutions that are holding a lot of credit that has to get rolled over into much higher credit, are going to be feeling the pain. And I think that's why we're far from seeing the end of the banking crisis. Then you've also got the commercial real estate problem that's in the same kind of boat, having been built on 14 years of near zero interest rates. Then you add on top of that the COVID crisis, where people realized that they did no longer have to come into the office to work, and vacancies are very high. And this is a looming problem. Another big looming problem that I don't hear enough talk about is what's happening with the currency wars. The BRIC nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and a whole slew of other countries are trying to get into create a currency that is a competitor to the US dollar for the world reserve currency, or at least a competitor in the world trade. And the same banks that are want this competitor to the US dollar have also been dramatically increasing their holdings of gold since 2008, in fact, and 2022 was a record year, and 2023 is on pace to be even bigger buying by the central banks. So I think that there's just a whole litany of reasons that are creating a perfect storm for gold to go much higher. Now, the big thing that I want to talk about is that I believe there's a big transition happening where when I find it's not difficult to find a lot of undervalued mining stocks, is a time when I know that a turnaround is coming. And so far, there has been fits and starts of the mining stocks, gold, silver, copper, other metal stocks that have got more bullish, but then February kicks you in the teeth, and then May kicks you in the teeth. And it just creates this environment of people that don't believe that the bull market that started in November is real. And again, I believe that there's so many reasons to believe that it's real and to be bullish on gold that I just think it's a very short period of time before the mining stocks really start to participate. And therefore, I can see a transition in the reporting that I'm going to be doing. And I'm going to be talking a lot more about stocks than I am about the trends in the metals. I believe this is a time when investors can position themselves at very cheap valuations of great companies that are primed to perform very well as the bull market for the stocks gets underway. And so I believe the biggest service I can do to my audience is to highlight a lot of good companies that have excellent assets, and yet they're getting very cheap valuations for those assets in their stock prices. And so I'm going to get right into it. One of the companies that is a pick of mine that had news out today was Amex Exploration. Those that have been following my reports for years know that I originally started picking this company at 50 cents. I believe they have a future mine, and I believe that they will be taken over by a much larger company, and that very well could happen a lot sooner than people are giving them credit for. They announced today that they expanded their team zone and delivered wide near-surface drill intercepts of up to 1.7 grams per ton gold over 68 meters, including 7.89 grams per ton of gold over 9.7 meters. Here's the highlights where they talk about those results. Jacques Trottier is a PhD and is the executive chairman of Amex, and he had a quote in the news release, and I'll quote him now. Today's results are largely focused on the expansion and definition of the team zone to the east, following the general northwest-southeast trend of the system. We are very excited to be seeing both high-grade mineralization and longer intervals of near continuous gold within the system as we continue to advance our understanding of the team zone. With any new zone, it takes time to understand the system through modeling and drilling. The oriented drilling that we have been doing on the team zone since September has proven to be very helpful in targeting. We have identified 5 distinct orientations of gold-bearing veins and are adjusting drill targeting as we advance. Upcoming drilling, along with pending holes, will continue to delineate the zone at 50-meter centers, as well as expanding along trend, particularly to the northwest towards the previously discovered 210 gold zone. This work will define the potential at the team zone, end quote. So why I believe that there'll be a future mine is they've got a series of gold zones. Their best one is the high grade zone, but the team zone is not very far away. In fact, all of their zones are in very close proximity. And it's this close proximity that I think is indicative of a very powerful gold mineralizing system that will ultimately lead to a 5 million ounce plus resource and be something that a major mining company will want to take over. I think it will be at several multiples of their current valuation. So that's the story on Amex. I'm going to try and give each company about 3 to 5 minutes. The next company is Advanced Lithium, where I'm the CEO and the president. And we announced in March 9th that Advanced Lithium reaches agreement with Wolfden Resources to acquire 100% interest in all of their Bathurst mining camp projects in New Brunswick, Canada. This is an exciting acquisition for the company because it's a classic story of going into a well-known mining jurisdiction. In this case, the Bathurst mining camp is considered one of the top 3 VMS mining camps in the world. But for many years, it was controlled by major mining companies that didn't do a whole lot of exploration. And now it's emerging or re-emerging as an important place for exploration. And Advanced Lithium was able to acquire 170 square kilometers of ground in this camp, which is a unique situation in that, you know, a lot of times when there's a re-emergence of an old camp, many junior mining companies get in there and acquire all the ground, and it's a patchwork of various different companies. In this case, we've been able to go in there and acquire the largest land position of any junior mining company that is in the camp on the key structures and rock packages that are known to host all the important mines and VMS occurrences in this camp. We're working on some developments on that I hope to be able to report on very soon. But you can do some homework on by reading this news release. A few days before that, we also announced that we had been entered into discussions with Mexico's national lithium company, Lithium Amex, to form a joint venture. Those talks have been continuing. I think that there is a path towards us getting a joint venture together with Lithium Amex. I hope to have something to talk about on that in the not too distant future. We are also part of a development of a new extraction method for lithium and potassium from clay deposits. And we're doing a demonstration plant building right now. The metallurgists have it running and are optimizing it as we speak. And that's another development that I hope to have news on in the not too distant future. And then we also have a large land package in the just to the north of the Las Chispas mine of Silvercrest. It's a large land package, and it has known epithermal veins on it that have been underexplored, and we're putting together a plan to get that done as that exploration drilling done as well. So that's the Advanced Lithium story. Next, I'm going to talk about Alta Copper. This is a new name for a company that I've followed for many years called Candente. Candente changed their name to Alta Copper. They have an exceptional copper project in Peru. It's one of the top 10 for lowest the high for grade and size of any undeveloped copper deposit in the world. I'm very bullish on copper, and I believe that copper is going much higher due to the electric car revolution and other alternative energy methods that people are interested in seeing happen. You've also got the industrialization of developing economies that are going to need a lot of copper. So there's a lot of demand for copper, but not a lot of new mines coming into production to meet that demand. There's a very significant supply crunch coming for copper, which I think will drive the price much higher. And a company like Alta Copper that has such an exceptional project that ranks in the top 10 in size and grade of undeveloped mines is the kind of thing that many major mining companies are going to be wanting to develop, which makes them a takeover target in my books. And not too long ago, I did an interview with their chairman, Giulio Bonifacio, and you can find that on my YouTube channel at Rocks and Stocks News, or also on my Substack at rocksandstocks.substack.com. The next company I'm going to talk about is Arizona Silver. Arizona Silver has an exceptional epithermal vein system in Arizona. What makes it exceptional to me is that they have most of their drilling has been above the boiling zone of an epithermal vein system. And yet they're already hitting very high grade to bonanza grades in places that they're not supposed to hit them in this kind of a system. And now that they've done a lot of drilling near surface, now they're starting to poke deeper holes. They have one in the lab as we speak right now that could be coming out with results anytime now in the next couple, 2-3 weeks. And they're also drilling another deep hole that should be submitted for assaying in the same time frame. I really think that this company, well, for one, it's been outperforming a lot of its peers. It's outperforming gold as well. And they've got some, again, this is quite an exceptional gold rich epithermal vein system that has already hit the bonanza grades that you expect in the boiling zone, but they're hitting above the boiling zone. So I'm very eager to hear this latest hole that went in that has been drilled deeper to get into that boiling zone, and the current one that's happening right now. Arizona Silver is another one that I'm very bullish on, and they're a sponsor of my shows as well. Athena Gold is another sponsor of my shows, and they're advancing the Excelsior Spring project in Nevada in the Walker Lane Gold District. Now, what makes this project exciting for me is that in the past few months, they announced 3 drill holes from their recent drill campaign, which hit oxide gold in very high grade for an oxide gold deposit. A lot of oxide gold systems these days are, a 0.5 gram or something like that, whereas these guys were hitting multiples of higher grades than that. And they're just really getting started into this oxide system. What also makes it exciting for me is that the north and the south of where they sort of drilled in the middle of a north and south faulting system that goes east to west. And in between that, they've also got this big, large alteration zone. Alteration zones are very important indicators because when the gold-bearing fluids meet the country rock, it chemically alters that rock. And they have a large area of alteration. And so they've sort of drilled in between the faulting and in between, sort of in the middle of the alteration zone, where they hit this this high-grade oxide gold. And they recently did a financing, and they are getting ready to start drilling. I think they're going to deliver a lot of good stuff with their drilling, and yet this company has a sub $10 million Canadian valuation. And I think that they're going to have no problem delivering excellent results with their upcoming drilling. And they're coming from such a low valuation that if they deliver what I think they deliver, I can easily see that this trades at multiples of its current valuation. That's the Athena Gold story. They are a sponsor of my shows, done interviews with their management. In fact, I recently did an interview with them, and you can again find that on my YouTube channel at Rocks and Stocks News or on my Substack at rocksandstocks.substack.com. Next up is Bell Copper. This is a company that is one of my picks. They're not a sponsor, but I believe strongly in what they're doing. Tim Marsh, they're in Arizona. This is elephant country for copper deposits. And Tim Marsh has been involved in drilling elephant copper deposits. He's the CEO of the company. And I believe he's on to gonna find another one. They're not getting a lot of joy in the market with their valuation. But if he delivers what I think he's going to deliver, this is another one that I think will trade at multiples of its current valuation. There just really isn't enough good copper exploration stories out there. And the reason I know is I'm very bullish on copper, and I'm always on the lookout for copper exploration stories, but I have a really difficult time finding them. I really like what Bell Copper's doing. I've had him on the show a few times, and again, you can find that on the YouTube at Rocks and Stocks News, or also on my Substack at rocksandstocks.substack.com. But they're drilling a big geophysical system and our target, and they believe that they drilled one hole into sort of the side of an elephant. And it gave some good indications that there is an elephant there. It was a thick intersection, the right kind of rocks and the right kind of stuff in the drill core. And then they moved the drill, and now they're drilling into the heart of that elephant. And it's a buried system, so they got to drill quite a bit to get down to this, to the what I think is a deposit, an elephant deposit. So the announcement that they recently made that they are drilling as of a couple months ago, they're drilling through the cover and drilling towards that target. And I think that they're on the verge of drilling into the target. And if they are able to hit what Tim and many others think they will, this can be a spectacular performer. And, you know, they say you want to buy low and sell high. Well, first you got to buy low. And I think Bell Copper is trading at a low valuation relative to the quality of the target that they're after. This weekend, I put out an interview with Andrew Pollard from BlackRock Silver. And what we talked about mainly was their Silver Cloud project. Late last year, they drilled into a bonanza grades of an epithermal vein system that it's very clear that they hit the boiling zone of that epithermal vein system. It returns 70 grams per ton of gold and over 600 grams per ton of silver. When you hit those kind of grades in an epithermal vein system, it's very clear that you've tagged the boiling zone of that epithermal vein system. This is well situated. It's got big epithermal vein mines in close proximity, very famous mines in Nevada, including the Midas and the Hollister mine. And I think that they could have a company maker in their Silver Cloud project that not a lot of people are giving them credit for, because the stock is trading at about a 52-week low right now. There's that asset. Then they've also got a epithermal vein system in Tonopah, Nevada, where they have already put out a resource, which is pretty good size for a maiden resource and very good and excellent grade, the kind of grade that makes for epithermal silver mines. They've been drilling away to expand that, and I think they will expand that. And ultimately, I think they have a mine at Tonopah that in the future will be owned by a much bigger company that will buy them out at multiples of their current valuation. I did that interview this weekend and with Andrew Pollard. You can find it on the YouTube channel at Rocks and Stocks News, or also on Substack at rocksandstocks.substack.com. What has me really excited about them right now is that drilling that will get underway any day now on their Silver Cloud project to follow up on the bonanza grade hits that they hit in their Northwest Canyon target area. These epithermal veins are known to occur in clusters, so I think that they have the potential of finding more, and a lot of them don't outcrop, so you would catch them by drilling angled holes at a known vein. I think they've got the potential to find more veins, blind veins, and the beautiful situation for them is that they know based on that one hole where the epithermal vein, boiling zone or bonanza grade zone is inside of the vein network. So if they find more, they'll be able to target based on what they learned off of that one hole. Now they've got a bunch of holes to expand that zone, and that bonanza grade zone, and I'm very optimistic that they're going to be delivering a lot of great news off of this Silver Cloud drilling. So that's the BlackRock story. They're a sponsor. I'm really happy to have them as a sponsor because I think that they're going to be a big winner. Next company is not a sponsor of the shows, but is a pick. It's called Canadian Gold Corp. And they announced their phase 1 exploration program to begin at the Tartan mine. Main objective is to extend the high-grade gold at the depth on the property-wide exploration potential outlined. This was made on May the 12th. Now, the interesting part about this, before I get into the targets, is that this company was formerly called, oh my gosh, I can't remember it right now. But what happened was they were thinking about getting into the Satori, and they were thinking about getting into the weed business. Their symbol was Bud. And then Rob McEwen came along with and looked at their Tartan project and really liked the Tartan project. And he had a private company that had other great projects as well, exploration targets, and he vended that into the company. So now he is a major shareholder and also is helping to fund the company. And then he brought his cohort from the Gold Corp days, Peter Bell, and he's now running the company. And so the dynamic duo that I call them from the great Gold Corp days are together again on Canadian Gold Corp. What made Gold Corp so great when they were running it was that it was one of the lowest cost producers of gold in the business, and it was one of the best performing gold mining stocks. And I think they're going to do it again. And the key asset is this Tartan mine. Now, it had historical mining. As you can see, these gray spiraling is a network of underground workings. And in the underground workings, they saw very high grades, 21 grams over 16 meters, 44 grams over 12 meters, 22 grams over 16 meters, 17 grams over 11.53 meters. And I would also point out that these high-grade zones are lining up quite nicely inside of a shell of also fairly high grade as well. That shell has a grade thickness, so a metal factor of greater than 40. The purple is a greater than 100. And when you get greater than 100 metal factor, that's where you find mines. Now, here's what really excites me. So they had it, but prior to 2017, they did the work to have a resource, but all of that is the material up here. What is not part of that is there was some limited drilling below that resource, where they hit 6.9 grams per ton of gold over 5 meters, 23.8 grams of gold over 12.6 meters, 9.7 grams per ton of gold over 4.15 meters. But there's only a handful of holes underneath that resource. And based on what you can see here, it looks like this, the purple inside of this shell gets much bigger as you get deeper. They're either started or about to start drilling on this depth potential down here. And I really like their chances of delivering excellent grades. You don't get 24 grams per ton over 12.6 meters in a small system. I think this is a very big system. I think it's an orogenic gold system. These systems tend to go down for 3,000 meters. In fact, the Red Lake mine that Corp ran was an orogenic gold system, and they went down 1,000 meters before they hit the bonanza grades, and then it continued for over another 1,000 meters, and that's what made them one of the lowest cost producers of gold in the mining business, with big margins, low cost, big margins, and they were a cash-making machine. I think they've got the chance of finding another cash-making machine, and I'm really optimistic about this. I had an interview with Rob McEwen and their new CEO, and you can find that on my YouTube channel at Rocks and Stocks News, or also on my Substack at rocksandstocks.substack.com. All righty, next company is a new sponsor of my reports, a company called Copper Road Resources. As you can see from their headline here, exploring for copper across the 30 kilometers of mineralization at the 21,000 hectare property near Ontario's Batchewana Bay. Now, this project has historical mining. It has known breccia pipes with high grades of copper, and it has porphyries on the property as well. Porphyries tend to be, are what a lot of the big mines are. They tend to be lower grade, but very big tonnage. The breccia pipes tend to be smaller tonnage, but very high grade. So they have an excellent combination. I wrote an article about them not too long, in the last 2 weeks, that you can find on Substack at rocksandstocks.substack.com. Or I also did a recent interview with their key geologist and their CEO that was very informative about the quality of this project. And yet the company has under a $5 million valuation. As I've said many times, I'm very bullish on copper, but what I have a harder time is finding a lot of good copper exploration and development stories to talk about. Copper Road Resources has one. It's being very undervalued right now. I think they've got a very big system on their hands. When you talk about 30 kilometers of mineralization on a 21,000 hectare project that has seen historical mining and also has drilled into known breccia pipes with high grade and also porphyries, that they're onto something very serious here. And they're not too far away from starting some drilling. And I'm very optimistic that as they start drilling, they will deliver the kind of results that sees their valuation much higher. Dynasty Gold is another sponsor of my shows. And what really excites me about them is their Thundercloud project. Thundercloud project has all the key characteristics of an orogenic gold system. This green rock you see here is a greenstone belt. These are very old rocks that orogenic gold systems are known to occur in. Now, second thing you need is, in these old rocks, you need faulting. The faulting is like the conduit that high-grade gold fluids that carry that high-grade gold up into closer to surface. It's the conduit that it uses to come up. So they've got the right ages of rock, they got the right faulting system, and most importantly, they've hit very high grades, bonanza grades. Let me see here. Okay, so here's their January 16th news release. 1.5 meters at 246 grams per ton of gold, 3 meters of 101, 12.5 meters of 25.66, 28 meters of 13 grams, 51 meters of about a quarter of an ounce per ton. And if you look at where they've hit that, they've got a historical hole, then they've got 3 other holes, and the high grades create 2 zones, an upper zone that has 4 hits of either high grade or bonanza grade gold. That's the zone that contained that 1.5 meters of 246 grams per ton of gold. And then below that, it looks like they got 1 hole into a lower zone. So what this tells you is often when you see this, you can envision or speculate that there will be a stacked zones in an orogenic gold system. Now, other evidence that they have an exciting discovery is this property was held by Teck at one time, and Teck drilled several holes close to surface, and they hit some spectacular grades as well. And now all of that is being, the 4 holes and the Teck holes are all being combined into a leapfrog model. This is a program that geologists can use to model what those hits are, those core holes are hitting, and create a 3-dimensional model of the zone. That's happening right now. Another thing that's happening right now is they're preparing to start drilling. They were able to raise over $4.5 million. 1.2 million of it came from Rob McEwen. Rob McEwen is a very astute investor. And just go back a couple of companies when the last company I talked about, Rob and his experience at the Red Lake mine, which was an orogenic gold system as well. So he knows what these things look like. And I think that's why he put a good chunk of change into the recent financing. I did as well, because I believe very strongly in what these guys are doing. And yeah, take a look at Dynasty Gold, their sponsor, and do your homework on them. Focus Mining is a new sponsor, and when I started doing my homework about Focus, it reminded me of the early days of Malartic discovery made by Osisko, that they ultimately built into a mine and then got taken over. Back then, there was a lot of consternation in the mining space about, oh, well, is the grade good enough? Can they get the permits? Are they going to be able to move the town, the small town that needs to be moved? Are they going to be able to get the financing to build a mine? They did all of those things. And Focus, at their Galloway Gold Project, has similar stuff of what I saw in the early days of the Malartic discovery. And it also gave me a good feeling, because in my career that I started in 2005, reporting on the sector, I've only ever covered a few companies in Quebec. One of them was in the early days of Osisko's success, that ultimately led to a huge winner for a lot of my audience. And then Virginia, Andre Goumon's companies that They spun out, they got bought out, they got spun out assets, they got bought out again. Andre Goumond is a serial success story in Quebec. And so I haven't had a lot of companies to pick in Quebec, but the ones I have picked have been pretty spectacular. And I think Focus has something that will turn into a spectacular discovery. They've got a high grade or a near surface zone that looks like it could be open pit mined. They've got another zone that goes a little deeper with all of the zones seem to be pointing in the same direction at depth underneath this envelope that's at the near surface. And they also have another target that's not too far away that is kicking out some very high grades. So I think that this company is very underappreciated. I think they've got a great project at their Galloway Gold project. They got a really smart guy running the company. I've had interviews with him on my YouTube channel at Rocks and Stocks News, and you can also find that on my Substack at rocksandstocks.substack.com. Focus just became a new sponsor in the last month or so, but I'm looking for some big things out of this company, and I invite you to do your homework on them. Alrighty, the next company is not a sponsor. They are a pick. They're called Faraday Copper. As you can see here, they're developing a U.S. domestic copper project. It's in it's the Copper Creek project in Arizona. They've been getting some excellent grades out of this copper project at 45 meters of 1.68% copper. We'll look through. They did a PEA that gives them a net present value of US 713 million with 4.2 billion pounds of copper in the measured and indicated category, 100 meters of 0.69% copper, 52 meters of 1% copper, 33 meters of 3.43% copper, 15 meters at 10.83% copper, and 1.65 grams of gold. You can look that they've been doing this all 2023, having excellent news release after excellent news release. They topped out at about 20% higher than their current valuation, or maybe more than 20%. And I think for those that are bullish on copper, Faraday Copper is an excellent opportunity. As I've said before, when I talk about copper projects, I just don't think that there's enough new discoveries that have the potential of becoming future mines to help the supply chain to meet the demands that are coming from the electric vehicle revolution. And so the industry needs to find world-class mines. They need to find basically the unicorns, the ones that are only found in a generation every year to meet the demand. So because that industry is not doing that, I believe that copper is going to go well over $5 per pound and somewhere in between $5 to $10 per pound in the next few years. And when that happens, these copper stories that right now have very modest valuations will have very high valuations. And Faraday Copper is one you want to do your homework on. I like their story a lot. I've covered them in my reports. Haven't been successful in being able to get their management on an interview, but I'll keep trying because I'm a big believer in what they have. But they have a lot of information here on their website that will help you do your homework on Faraday Copper. Another company that is not a sponsor, but I'm very bullish on, is a company called Firefox Gold. And as you can see here, they're working on gold discovery in Finland. Now, Finland has been making a lot of noise in the last few years because of success by several junior mining companies that have pretty handsome valuations based on the success that they've had. And Firefox has a tiny valuation, yet they are well positioned near all of those big success stories. And in fact, they've even had success of finding high grade near surface in orogenic gold systems, and yet have been totally ignored. I've been fortunate to get their management on a couple of shows, and I advise you to take a look at those because I think they're onto something serious in an emerging gold camp that will have future mines, very profitable future mines. And these guys have a large land package. They were a first mover into Finland for gold exploration, and I like what they have. I like the results that they've already had. I like the bargain that they offer to my audience that I don't think will be around for too much longer. Once they start drilling again, which is around the corner, I think that valuation will be significantly higher. All right. The next company is a sponsor of the shows. They're called Galantis Gold. They are currently mining and exploring for Irish gold. This company is in Northern Ireland. And in my entire career of reporting on the sector since 2005, I only ever picked one other company in Northern Ireland. It's a company called Dalradian. I started picking it at about 25 cents. They ultimately were taken over at several multiples of that price. And I think Galantis is on a path to having that kind of success. They're at a very early stage in that success curve. They are not at an early stage in their drilling at their Omagh project. They have a series of orogenic gold zones with high grade to bonanza grades. They also have a series of what are called dilation zones. And this is where the rock opens up a little more and the fluids can make their way into there. But it's not only important for finding nice pods of gold. What it also tells you is when you have a network of, first of all, these zones, and then inside of those zones, you have these dilation zones, it starts to help you target where you go deeper into an orogenic gold system. Now, most of their drilling into this orogenic gold system has been in the first couple hundred meters in the various different zones. And now they've got the method to target deeper. And that's what their future drilling is meant to do, is to target those zones deeper. Because these zones are so tightly packed in close proximity, right beside a big structure, these structures are very deep. They're called crustal faults. These are big cracks in the earth that allow the fluids that carry the gold from much deeper to make their way up towards the surface. I think what's happening here is that the source of the gold is the faulting, and the mineralization is in these zones beside it. I think as they go deeper, they're going to find that those zones all come together at depth, and that what is really interesting about this project is they're still in the fine-grained portion of an orogenic gold system. They haven't seen any visible gold in the system, or very little of it. And as you get deeper into these orogenic gold systems is where the gold gets more coarse and more high grade and more concentrated. And I think that's what's in their future. They also have an excellent VMS project in Scotland. There's a lot of countries that didn't see a lot of exploration for many, many years. And now that you've got this electric vehicle revolution happening, there's a lot of countries in the world that now want to have mining, because they realize that a lot of these metals are controlled by China. And to have an electric vehicle revolution throughout the world, you can't just depend on China. and therefore they're opening their doors to explorers. Scotland is one of those. It does have the geological history to host important VMS deposits. In fact, there is some of that those indicators on their Goliath project in Scotland, and the combination, I think, is quite exciting. They did a financing not too long ago that I participated in. I participated because as the saying goes, you sell for many reasons. You only buy for one because you think the stock is going to go higher. And that's why I did, and that's what I think is going to happen. So do your homework on Galantis Gold. They are a sponsor, so I will be doing plenty of interviews. I've already done them, some in the past with Mario Stefano on my YouTube channel at Rocks and Stocks News, or also on the Substack at rocksandstocks.substack.com. And I expect to do a lot more. Next company is Golden Lake Exploration. Now, one of my, the company that I believe is a cornerstone holding for investors in the gold space and the metals space is a company called i-80 Gold. i-80 Gold has been finding a bonanza grade CRD, carbonate replacement deposit, in Eureka, Nevada, not very far from Golden Lake. In between Golden Lake and i-80 Gold's ground was a company called Paycore. They were also a sponsor of my shows and reports, and i-80 Gold has recently taken them over. So this is an exceptional area to find these bonanza grade CRDs. There was a lot of historical mining of these high grade CRDs from the 1860s to around the 1960s. And then it kind of went dormant for a lot of years until i-80 Gold started to make a lot of noise. And then right next door to them, Paycore. And Jewel Ridge, that's owned by Golden Lake, that has a sub $5 million valuation, it has a historical mining on the project. And they also drilled one hole into a bonanza grade CRD. High-grade silver, lead, zinc, and an overprint of high-grade gold to bonanza-grade gold. And that's what Paycore had next door and i-80 Gold has next door to them. So now that Paycore is taken out by i-80 Gold, now Golden Lake is the next door neighbor to i-80 Gold. And in fact, they put out a news release not too long ago that i-80 Gold and Golden Lake are doing sort of a joint effort to do a district-wide geophysical program that covers all of their ground, the i-80 ground and the Eureka ground, or the Jewel Ridge project of Golden Lake. Golden Lake is probably a month or two away from drilling, but I think when they do get back to drilling, that they're going to make some important discoveries. They've been learning a lot from their next door neighbors, Paycore and i-80 Gold, about these CRD systems. They've got a really good guy, exploration geologist, and Don Hoy that they brought on a few months ago that he really knows what he's doing when it comes to exploration. And I think these guys are going to deliver. In fact, not only are they a sponsor to my reports, but I'm also an advisor to the company. And the reason that I threw my hat in to be an advisor was because I was so bullish about what i-80 Gold and Paycore were finding, and that I think that Golden Lake will also find. And I wanted to be in early, and they were kind enough to accept my offer to be an advisor. And I really like the chances that this company has to find something like what Paycore found and were bought out for by their next door neighbor, i-80 Gold. And all of these companies are in that same neighborhood in the Eureka Gold Belt of Nevada. Alrighty, the next company up is Goliath Resources. Goliath Resources became a sponsor a couple months ago. I did an interview with them just this weekend on my YouTube channel at Rocks and Stocks News, and also on my Substack at rocksandstocks.substack.com. And also, I forgot to mention in the others companies that I also publish my reports on Twitter. So you can find there, you look for Allan B Reports. That's Allan, B as in boy, Reports on Twitter. So I had their two head geologists on, and you see this model that's spinning around. That yellowish sheet there is what's called their sherbet zone. They've done a fair amount of drilling into that, and it averages about over 6 meters and over 6 grams per ton of gold. And then you can see some gray areas that are cracks in the earth in close proximity to that sheet. And we talked about how those faults all come together, and the sheets of mineralization, because this isn't the only one, they're stacked on top of them. I think there's 5 or 6 that are stacked on top of them like layers of a cake, and they come down that mountain in the direction of where the faults all come together. These faults are the likely suspect of how that gold mineralization made its way from deeper up into that sherbet zone and the other stacked zones. And the bottom line is, I think that these guys have one of the most important new discoveries of gold in the Golden Triangle of British Columbia that's well known as a prolific mining jurisdiction. So that's saying a lot to put them into that category, but based on the results that they've had, the success that the ability that they have to have continuity of their mineralization, the potential for how that could get bigger at depth, the success that they're having with the drilling, the team that they have. I talked about all this on the interview that I did with them, and I invite you to check that out because it's a real eye-opener, and we got into the details of why I think they have one of the most important new discoveries in the Golden Triangle, and I invite you to check that out. Okay, we're about an hour in, and I didn't want to make this too long, but I only got about halfway through either my picks or my sponsors. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go off the screen share, and I'm going to close this show off, but I should have another show up by Tuesday or Wednesday talking about the rest of my picks and sponsors. As always, my shows are for information purposes only. It's important for you to speak with your financial advisors before making any investment decision. That applies to not just the mining sector, but any investment you're looking at. And also do your homework. I have always found that the most informed people are the ones that tend to trade based on reality, not emotions, and those that are not as well informed and tend to watch the stock fluctuations are the ones that make emotional trades. And it's those that make those logical trades based on homework that are the most successful in the mining sector and pretty much in every sector. So do your homework. We'll speak to you soon. Have a great day.